And you know what, Matt? You did such a damn good job. Why don't you go ahead and run the numbers on our first album? And you know what? Why don't you take the first take?
I'm just going to run with the whole thing. There you go. So the Replacements, Tim, comes in at number 63 in the 1980s on Best Ever Albums, number 8 in 1985, number 455 of all time. It is the Replacements' second highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, behind 1984's Let It Be, which was an album we covered couple weeks ago. And the Replacements are ranked at number 160 of overall artist rankings and Best Ever Albums. And Tim is not, along with all the other albums tonight, guys, no albums tonight made Rolling Stone's list. So,
wow. I'm
surprisingly
surprised this album wasn't on there.
Yep, I didn't see it, so
Okay.
I suppose I could have missed it. But yeah, so the second time covering the Replacements, and I'm finding that my knowledge of the Replacements is larger than what maybe I would have said it was when we first started covering them, because I'm just picking up songs sporadically placed on mixes by people, and a couple of them were on here, including Bastards of Young and Waitress in the Sky in particular. But Kiss Me on the Bus was also a song that I had heard before. So so somewhat familiar with these songs, and was glad to hear them back on this record. And yeah, guys, this is like kind of just, to me, it's kind of a continuation, sonically at least, of Let It Be. And just really, really liked it. Great, good mix of, kind of like a faster paced rock / punk. There's some like, maybe even harder, kind of like Dose of Thunder kind of was a little bit like a hard rock / quasi like Guns N' Roses
hair
type,
metal.
It's a little like,
I got that vibe.
I stopped sure. I don't know if hair metal is the best way to put it, kind of, but like it's like hair metal in the way that Guns N' Roses was hair metal. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But more of a it's not quite punk, and it's certainly a heavier form of blues rock. And yeah, I was definitely getting some of those vibes there. But then you've got different songs, like Waitress in the Sky is kind of a unique song. It's like this, I don't know, it's almost like a 50s kind of groove to it, like rock groove that's a little bit more subdued. And you've got a song like, Here Comes a Regular, which is just a really pretty acoustic song, which I liked. So I don't know. I felt like maybe there was a little bit more variety here than on Let It Be, perhaps. Kind of expanding the sound just a little bit more. Although there is some variety on that album as well. So I don't know. I just really I love Westerberg's vocals. He's got this great raspy voice that he's singing over the top of these songs. There's a lot of energy here. It's a fun record, and I really liked it. It was an easy listen for me. I wasn't really paying too much attention to the lyrics, but I know,
dude.
I know.
Go
well,
ahead. Continue.
You can tell everybody why the lyrics are great and what's happening. So, it's just we've been through that before. So, Bastards of Young's it's like a really great, almost like soaring chorus to it. So that's, I feel like these guys were just so, on some hand they're like unique, but on the other hand they're not unique because of, it's a lot of kind of building off of what's come already. So they're not really, like, sonically they're not doing anything terribly have to. They're just kind of, they're kind of melding a number of different things together. I do like the fact that Westerberg's kind of branching out a little bit and trying to go in some different directions. But it's a great album. I really like them. I don't know if we're going to cover them again. I didn't look into that, but I know that their next album was it's kind of like Let It Be, Tim, and then Pleased to Meet Me. I think that's the album that comes out after this, and that's the first one without Bob Stinson on guitar. I think they kicked him out shortly after this record.
Due to extensive drug, which is incredible for this band. That someone
another
Guns
another Guns N' Roses parallel is like when they kicked Steven Adler out for doing too much drugs, like in Guns N' Roses.
Right, and then of course it all goes full circle because Tommy Stinson ends up in the Guns N' Roses later. So true, yeah.
Maybe that's why I like them so much. It's like they're just so much in line with one of my favorite bands, But so it's great. Yeah, the Replacements are legit, and I'm big thumbs up on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is nearly a perfect album. I mean, this is going to get a 60 of 60 in my rankings, and has.
So you like this better than Let It Be?
I do. Yep, I think this is even more. I think this is. I love both albums. Right, I really do. I even like the early replacement stuff because there's gems all over, and the later stuff that's more. By the end, you're almost getting to like Westerberg's solo album-y kind of. But so this is their peak period for me. But I think this is a nearly perfect. I think there's more variety on this. I think there's polish, but there's extreme polish mixed with significant edge, which is just incredibly hard to do, to make an edgy album that also has incredible aesthetic appeal, I think, to the masses, which of course is always why the fact the Replacements weren't like a massive band is baffling to me, because you could see the entry point for so many places of where people could jump in, and then the fact that like 20 years later Replacement songs are just littered in movies all over, which is another sign of, like how accessible something could be. And but it never happened, and I mean it's a good testament to like when you do a lot of drugs and you don't have ambition to be huge, right? Which kind of, the Replacements had that thing where they wanted to be acknowledged for their music and stars, right? But there was a level of how big they wanted to be, and they had the self-sabotage mechanism, right? Which kind of, I think, always existed. And I've long said, like, there's an alternate universe, right, where they have somewhat of REM's career musically, but they never had it temperamentally, right? But to give you an idea of like how far I go back with this one, I mean, my yearbook quote in high school was, "God, what a mess on the ladder of success where you take one step and miss the whole first rung," which, was quite the ironic edgelord, comment to put in your yearbook, right? But, you're 17, 18. It sounds like a good idea. But lyrically, this album is fantastic. Like, it's just a tremendous album aesthetically. Westerberg's very interesting because he writes songs that seem like they should be love songs, but you start to realize they're very rarely seem to be personally about him. Even songs like Kiss Me on the Bus and Little Mascara are like observational, kind of in that Dylan way where you're like, how much am I really getting of him? I like this album I think Swingin' Party is an incredible song. I think Hold My Life is an incredible album opener, and I just love the fact that they alternate between like up-tempo, even a little bit punk edge, to like what you guys are calling sort of that like hair metal-y type vibe, to like ballads, like ballads, melancholy ballads. There's the way they're playing the guitars, they go frantic at times, like, not pretty much like 3-chord punk at times, right? And then they go expansive with pedal effects at times. Like, they're all over the place, and it's the perfect. It doesn't overstay its welcome. The guitar is malleable, and all of the versions of it they go with I like. The lyrics are fantastic. Paul Westerberg has a voice that is highly appealing to me. It just checks every single box of what I'm looking for. And if you were asking me to give you an album that would be like a pop rock album and or what would be like an independent indie music album, and you said, give me like a list of 5, like this is always going to be there. And it might be one. That's how much I enjoy this album. It definitely is top 5. There's some other albums that we're going to talk about that I feel somewhat as strongly about in future episodes, and I noticed that a disproportionate amount of them reside in the 80s for me, of albums that I would kind of put on my not Mount Rushmore, 'cause that's only 4, but if I were making my own personal top 25, I'm starting
Deserted Island.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize how many of those albums reside in the 80s, and especially how many of them reside between like the years of like 1984 and 1988. So it's going to be a fun period on the podcast for me because some of my all-time favorites are coming up. But yeah, this one, if you're not familiar with the Replacements or you haven't heard this album, and in any way you like what we would call independent rock or pop rock, I mean, we can run the list of bands that are the entryway into them because, like Matt said, the Replacements are highly influential in terms of the songwriting and the vibe to the 90s for sure, but they also very clearly pull from influences that are easy to track, back in the 60s and 70s as well, right? And they're residing in this ecosystem of quite a bit of bands that, we've covered, like the Smiths, the Cure, U2, REM, these bands that are like that college rock type idea that just really kind of, for me, kind of capture my personal zeitgeist a little bit. So yeah, highest recommendation for me.
Yeah, this is like when Natalie Portman puts the headphones on Zach Braff in Garden State. This album will change your life. I can imagine that happening to somebody if they listen to this for the first time. Yeah, this is a great album. I'm going to echo those sentiments both of you said. I think it's a continuation of Let It Be. I think Westerberg's writing is a standout to this band, and the melodies. I find that every song on here is fun to listen to. Tapping your toes, singing along. In some respects, they're almost like the best bar band that ever could be. That's kind of how their kind of aesthetic or oral aesthetic is. They're a little bit shaggy. But they just like write really good rock songs, and that comes through over and over again on this album. Do you think "Bastards of Young" is like their most famous song? Of all their albums,
John,
is it their most Can't Hardly Wait's a pretty
I gotta look up there. Let me see if there gets the most plays.
Alex Chilton's a pretty big song.
That's true.
Alex Chilton's on this record, by the way, incidentally.
What, Tim?
He is credited.
You mean the actual, not the song, Alex Chilton.
No, right. He's credited with vocals and additional production on Left of the Dial. So
Big Star is a seminal influence for them, and it's not hard to, there's a direct line, right, for what it is. But they take Big Star and punk it up a little bit, you know what I mean? And I think that the craft of Westerberg's song, I'm going to end this segment with a couple sets of lyrics that I think are particularly good on this to dig, but I don't want to jump on your time, Josh.
Yeah, it's just right from the get-go, like you said, Hold My Life. It's just a great song to sing along to. I really like I think it's a bridge when they kind of like slow it down and change it to "And You Just Might Lose It" as the lyric. I love that change. And then on down to I really liked Swinging Party as well. I thought that was a great change of pace for the album. And then Bastards of Young, which I knew. I knew this album already, but Bastards of Young, I think, was probably like one of the first Replacement songs I heard before I knew of the Replacements. And it's one of those songs where, at least for me, when you hear a really good song and you don't know who it is, you seek out, or try and find out who it is, and that was the case for me. I think that song probably, or Can't Hardly Wait, has probably led me to the band in some respects. So there, and then I really enjoyed listening to Let It Be. I wasn't as familiar with that one, but I think this is probably the stronger album. I'd probably have to do a back-to-back listen to decide which one I like more. I think this one's probably a little tighter and a little more refined, or kind of
they're not throwing like Black Diamond covers on this one,
right?
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah. But I like the Black Diamond cover a lot.
So. Oh, I do too. I like all that stuff. I'm saying they're not searching for ideas. They're fully formed, in my opinion. Yeah.
They're going all originals, and the acoustic number to end. Here Comes a Regular is such a, I really like the acoustic number on the last album too, and this one is also really strong. And so their ability to shift gears like that and still produce great songs is really a testament to how good they were. No bad things to say. This is going to be high on my end of decade rankings as well.
Can we talk about how great the lyrics to Swinging Party are, by the way? The whole thing is it speaks so much to me. Like lines like "Bring your own lampshade somewhere there's a party" is like such a great, profound way of like expressing like a soulless party, and then, "If being alone's a crime, I'm serving forever," is a great line. And, "On the prairie pavement, losing proposition, quitting school, going to work, and never going fishing" is like another great way to like express like despair, right? It's just, it's such a incredible like set of lyrics. And like, I like Little Mascara has great lines too. It's about like a woman who has, it's kind of like Too Much Too Young by the Specials, where it's about like him observing someone who had children too young, but he kind of takes it like, it really puts you in it. And like the line that always sticks out to me is, all you ever wanted was someone Maud be scared of. All you're ever losing is a little mascara. It's like, wow, that's pretty profound. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like you go from being the person who it's, you know what I mean? It's walking on the edge to have a kid to the reality of like having it and like what it takes from you. And like you kind of lose your youth. You're living fast, but you kind of lose your your youth earlier. And then like a little mascara is the symbolism, right? I mean, the guy who loves poetry and stuff in me, like Westerberg, he really can turn a phrase and he really can evoke imagery. I'm not going to say you're wrong, Matt, for not doing it, but there is a part of me that's always like, it's a shame that there's certain times that the lyrics don't come in for you, because this one would be one where I think if it did hit, you know what I mean? You'd be like, wow, like the words evoke the mood.
I picked up on some of the lyrics and stuff, but I didn't. It's like a lyric here or there. Like I knew about if something about if being, I'm doing time or something like that. Whatever that line was, like
if being
something
afraid is a crime, we stand side by side. Is there? Yeah.
So I picked up on something, but it just, man, it's not the way my brain goes. So I don't know.
I think
Here Comes a Regular. It's like summer's past. It's too late to cut the grass. It's just kind of funny little turns of phrase like that always kind of.
I mean, I get more that. I mean, that song is. I mean, yes, the lyrics do kind of evoke some kind of melancholy, feeling. I'm just kidding. I get more of that out of the music though. Like that, that song to me is just. I love that acoustic song. It's so simple.
But
whatever
Here
chords
Comes
he's
a Regular
playing.
Sounds so disparate. Like, does it not at all? Like, if you hear that there's a lyric that says you're like a picture on the fridge that's never stocked with food, does that not like kind of hammer home a little bit of the despair of that song, where you're just basically going to the bar because there's like nowhere else to go, right? And it's like the sadness of being a regular at a bar, but also like the joy that it brings, to do it.
That's really kind of the Replacements in a nutshell, right? I think that there is like a sadness and melancholy to almost like all of their songs, or to his writing at least, and that comes through even as the songs are upbeat or fun to listen to. I think there is kind of a, if not like,
well, it was with adolescent humor in the early ones, but even in the last album, right? They did the tongue-in-cheek Black Diamond. They did Tommy Got His Tonsils Out and stuff. And this one, there's none of that. This is a thoroughly adult album. That's, to me, that's what the difference is between Tim and Let It Be.
That's a good point.
And just as you guys were talking, I was looking up the most listened to song on Spotify of the Replacements is Swingin' Party.
Oh, what? Really?
So,
It must be in some sort of like Netflix show or something.
Yeah.
If it was historical, it would be Bastards of Young. Yeah. And then Left of the Dial would be high. Can't Hardly Wait would be high. Those would be the ones historically. But there has to be some Netflix
I'm going to
show
see what it is on Amazon.
Kate Bush Running Up the Hill, the playlist,
John, do you know where they got the album title from?
Tim?
Yeah.
Tim Buckley?
No, this was in the documentary that I had seen, and it was basically they were at a party, and some right around the time that they were recording this, and there was a guy, he might have been playing like some music and stuff with a band or whatever, but he just this guy passed out and just was was totally wasted and whatever, and they just kind of left him there, and that guy's name was Tim, and they were like, let's just name the album Tim after some random dude, some guy at this party.
The thoroughly awesome way of them naming their albums, let's name the album after Beatles albums, because why not? To this one, let's just name it. I mean, the story I told on the last one of how they kept pressuring him to make a video. So they basically just made a video of a shot of a stereo speaker that they forced MTV to play. So it's, I don't have the level of melancholy and despair that I think they were going through, and certainly, but am I, when I said with that Cure album, Pornography, right? While I can't go all the way there, do I have enough moments from time to time where I'm adjacent to some of these feelings that I'm able to step in to the songwriting here and the mood at times? Absolutely. And that's why the Replacements are a top tier band for me, because they just hit me on on not just the level of aesthetically liking it, but they kind of worm into my soul a little bit. So
yeah, and they fully kind of embrace their blue collarness too. I think that comes through as well. There's no
which is another brand of mine. So
yeah, there's no sort of songs about rich people or stuff. It's all very kind of working class places and you know, themes and stuff like that.
Well, and it's a different working class than like Springsteen or Billy Joel working class too, right? You know what I mean? There's it's not super aspirational,
right?
Mixed with the downs of it.
Yeah.
It's more like, here's where we are. So how are we carving out? It's more existential, I think, is the way that I would describe it. Would that be a good word for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Whereas Springsteen's more. Well, I shouldn't say that he's not existential, because songs like The River, right, is pretty damn existential. But there's a concrete nature to Springsteen. Like, he gives his characters first names, right? And he identifies places, and he has definitive, consistent imagery, right? And stuff, whereas Westerberg is a lot more in the weeds. You know what I mean? Like, kind of, he's obscures sort of the feeling and... But then he'll strike you with a very striking image, you know? Yeah. It's like kind of like, you know, in the Springsteen, is a dream alive if it don't come true, or is it something worse, right? Which is one of his best lyrics. That's like Westerberg all the time. He writes lyrics like that.
Right.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, anyway.
Amazon's most top song is Can't Hardly Wait, for the record.
Yeah, it's interesting on Spotify. Swingin' Party's got like, I don't know, 15 million more listens than Can't Hardly Wait.
Didn't Lord cover Swingin' Party? That could be what it is. I think Lord covered Swingin' Party, and probably people came to check out the original.
Yeah.
I am bored.
Yeah. Okay, well, 3 pretty robust thumbs up, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say
correct?
so.
Yeah.
They kick ass.
I'd say so. I thought you'd be a little more... I'm surprised.
I just said they kick ass.
Yeah. No, I'm not trying to sway you. I just,
Yes.
Yeah. C. So. Okay.
Listen, and we don't cover them again, so listen to that next album, Matt. It's good stuff. I listened to it.
Yeah, that's
ago.
like their trifecta, right? That's supposed to